I came across a phrase or a terminology that I hadn't heard before reading this book called The End of Average. And then since I read it, it became something that I was really interested in. And the phrase was the ergodic switch. And what Todd Rose, the author, did is he explained something for the first time for me that others have since brought to my attention. Ole Peters is someone that does a phenomenal job online, but essentially the way I interpret ergodicity is when the behavior of a million things done one time is the same as observing the behavior of one thing done a million times. Okay, so when something is not ergodic, it means that observing the behavior of a million things one time is not the same as observing the behavior of one thing a million times. And I love some of the language that the folks that study this use. What they often say is you can't access parallel universes. It means that we only have one life to live, or we only have one game to play. We can't really use 1,000 baseball games to determine the behavior of our one game, right? So when someone says something is not ergodic, they're basically saying that observing the behavior of a million games and implying that if it's true for a million games, it's true for my game. That isn't right. And so the one chart that always draws me in is these expected value charts. And in the one that you're seeing on your screen, it's the sacrifice bunt, first and second to second and third, expected runs. And what they have listed is they have first and second, nobody out, offers up zero, or with zero outs, offers an expected value of 1.44 runs, whereas second and third with one out offers up less runs. And then that becomes the argument not to bunt. And again, where did they get this information? I'm assuming they sampled lots and lots of games. And essentially what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's evaluate the outcomes of as many games as possible, and then let's let that determine the behavior of your game, right? And the people that study ergodicity would say, well, that makes absolutely no sense, because just the simple idea of an average allows for extremes. So what I have here is I have the first and second nobody out scenario where they said the average is 1.44. And again, there's an infinite amount of ways to create an average, but I created one, and really that's all I need to do is create one to prove something wrong. So here I have a possible example of an average of 1.4 runs produced in this potential base state. So in this state, you could have 10 runs one time, 8 runs 2 times, 6 runs 4 times, 4 runs 6 times, 2 runs 20 times, 1 run 30 times, 0 runs 17 times, and that gives you an average of 1.44 runs per that base state. And then beside it, I have the lesser attractive option according to this scenario, which is 1.38, a possible example. So whenever you choose to bunt, many times you choose to bunt only with the interest of scoring one run. You don't care about multiple runs. It could be late in the game, and you don't care if you win 18-3 or 4-3. You're just playing for one run. So I create a possible example where all of these extremes are ignored. Just kick them away. And that leaves me, I created a scenario where we score 2 runs 40 times, we score 1 run 58 times, and we score 0 runs 2 times. And the simple fact that I can create these numbers gives more credence to my idea, is that averages can be found an infinite amount of ways. And that brings me to this quote: never cross a river 3 feet deep on average. The implication is that you can't predict where the extremes come. So in this case, I think any coach in a dugout would say, well, here I only scored 0 runs twice. Here I scored 17. Here I scored 1 run 58 times. Here only 30. And here I scored 2 runs 40 times and 2 runs only 20. So if that's the case, if I can't access parallel universes, and if the only game I really care about is my game and not the million games that have preceded me, and there's no way of predicting how those runs were accumulated, well, yeah, I want this option. I want the second and third one out option, which speaks to, yeah, I want to sacrifice bunt. And the reason why we've fallen for it is the same reason why I would fall for it prior to coming across this phrase, this ergodic switch. So that's something I wanted to bring to your attention. And the other one, just something a little bit outside the baseball realm, is these ideas of extremes really complicate averages. So a common example I'll use in stats class is if we're at a dinner and you've got 5 CEOs sitting around a table, they have some average wealth that's probably pretty high. 5 CEOs, they're doing well for themselves. Well, then right beside him, it's me and it's you and it's my good buddy Mark and my good buddy Mitch, and then Bill Gates joins us, and now all of a sudden, our average wealth exceeds their average wealth. And we have a legitimate argument to make that claim. Where upon further review, you're like, well, that's ridiculous. These 4 people pale in comparison to the rest of them. Yeah, but you lumped us all together. You're talking averages. And the whole reason this book is so attractive is it's basically saying that, you know, the idea of an average uh, can't hold weight when you're trying to evaluate your life and your decisions and your games. And there's some really good guys out there with some great explanations. But I thought this would be an argument for this particular chart, which I don't think holds any value. Now, I'd like to do one other video, which is going to be a tougher sell, which I think also potentially could be a valuable video, but that one's going to be a little bit tougher to sell. So this is what I will call part one, and then I'll do part two shortly.